So here, you can even take a peek at this and see that what we've got here, this happened to be a lecture that I did, I don't know, last year, whatever it is. And just to show you how Lightroom organizes photos, here, this is, if I had a lot more, or to zoom into them to see, it's just a great interface. So let's take a look for a minute at the originals that we're going to work with today. And because I want to show you the file sizes. Okay, so let's take a look. So what I did is, this is a stock image that's 5.6 megs. Here's an image, I forgot, this might have been from one of my lectures. It might have been, I don't know what it was, but that's probably why I didn't need it. That's some food. Here's a clinical photo of a composite. Here's a photo of an impression that I took. And here's a photo of a denture. And you can see the file sizes range from 5.6 megs down to 664 kilobytes. For the web, what you want to do in general is you want to have your images to around anywhere between 30 and 100 kilobytes. If you can get away with your images at 30, 40, or 50 kilobytes, that will be fantastic. Sometimes you have to go to 70 or 80 or 90, like if it's an image of a staff member. But something like this, like a denture, you could probably bring this down to 30 kilobytes. The idea for Lightroom is that, again, when we build a website for somebody, we do a lot of this optimization, but it's easier if you guys do it because you can crop the images the way you want, you can shape the images the way you want, and if there's a ton for us to do, we've got to charge a little bit extra for the time, and I hate to do that. So I'd much rather have the client give us the images that are ready, and again, and it lets you go through them. So the only time you want to see an image that's, let's say, 100, 150 kilobytes is if you are going to in a gallery. Because if you're doing a smile gallery, you expect for it to take a little bit longer because they are zoomed in images. And in that case, you usually have thumbnails. That'll be 20 or 30 kilobytes. And then you click on the larger image, and you click on it, and you get that larger image in detail. So these are the originals that we're going to start with. So what I want to do, and again, this is just scratches the surface of Lightroom. I'm just going to, but if you wanted to tonight to download the Lightroom trial, I think Adobe gives it to you for free for 14 days or 30 days, whatever it is. I'm just dragging them in. I'm clicking import. And now the images are in Lightroom. And so to answer that person's question, let's say I went ahead and I uninstalled Lightroom right now. My originals are still here. So that's something to know. Now, if I made any changes to these, you'd have to export them to files to make those changes stick if you were to get rid of Lightroom. So, okay, so what I want to do first now, we said the next thing is we're going to crop. So let's take a look at these images and see. This image is an image of a denture, and you know what? I don't need this extra area. So if you look in Lightroom, there's a develop section here too. The develop section lets you edit. And when you get in there, you're going to see it looks, for some people this looks like an airplane control panel. For other people, this is familiar. But for most of us, or anyone who's worked with photos, this kind of image, this icon that you see, this on my top left, this plus with the rulers, that's almost the universal crop sign. So let's go ahead, and I'm just going to drag and drop with my mouse, and I'm going to resize. See, oh, that's too close. This is, so I'm going to play with this till I get a very nice, what I think to be a balanced image. And you could go in here and change it to, change your aspect ratios if you wanted to. I mean, there's all sorts of things. I'm going to hit enter, and now that has cropped my image. So let me go back to the library, and again, to answer, again, that question about it, take a look now and you can see the image is cropped. If I were to uninstall Light, it has not changed my original. My original is still, where is it? Exactly the same. But now, if I went and deleted Lightroom right now, then this would all stay the same. If I wanted to keep a copy of this cropped, I'd have to export it, and that we're going to talk about. This is an image of, see, I'm zooming in. This is a beautiful stock image. I'm not going to crop that. Here's an image of an impression that I took, and you know what? I hit the trace, so I'm embarrassed here. So I don't want anybody to see that when I, write my prosthodontics book. I'm just kidding. So let's go ahead now, and see, I'm not necessarily going to crop this square. I could, but let's get rid of some of that paper towel, and I think that looks nice. And that's not in any kind of, oh, you know what? I don't like that. Undo. Undo. So let's try again to crop it better. And maybe let's go ahead and just get rid of the molar and, the rule of thirds there. Let's do that. Good. I'm happy with that. So let's go ahead now, and that crown fit, so I'm good about that too. Let's take a look at, where do we go here? In the library again, let's zoom out. I think that image is fine. I mean, it's not fine, but you know what I mean. Now, let's take a look here. If I wanted to crop this, I really don't like that the glass is here. Is that someone's wallet? I don't know. So let's try and crop it. And here's something you could do in Photoshop if you wanted to. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Hold on. But I'm going to be right here, and you can see, let me zoom in. You know, I still have the little bit of the glass there. You could, you know, Lightroom does have tools that you could get rid of this, but for a critical photo, for a presentation that's something huge, this is something that Photoshop excels at. You basically say to Photoshop, see this shadow here? Take the shadow and get rid of this, because I certainly don't like where that is. So we can keep that as it is, and it doesn't matter. So let's go ahead now and go back. So what we've done, we've gone ahead now, and let's go back to our library. And you can see, once it changes here, come on. Oh, okay, yeah. So you can see here, I mean, look, and there are things too. You can compare left and right. I mean, there's all sorts of views and things you can do. But anyway, there's face recognition. Okay, so you can see I've cropped a couple of these and I haven't cropped a couple of others. Now I want to do an export. And what's great is that with Lightroom is once you put your export settings in, you can save them and it remembers them. So, and again, don't be fooled. This is a very powerful program that if you wanted to come in here and go to, and adjust the temperature, let's adjust the exposure here. We can adjust the contrast, highlights. I mean, there's a whole, to do. And it does, for those of you who know what soft proofing is, it does it, which is really cool that it does soft proofing now. Okay, so let's go back to exporting. We're going to come here and we're going to select all our images. I'm hitting Control A. Let's hit export. Going a little quickly because you are going to have a recording of this. I just want to get you all out of here on time. So for now, I'm just going to export it to the desktop, and I'm going to put it in a subfolder because I don't want images floating around on my desktop. I like to keep it neat. So file naming. Whenever I go ahead and I optimize an image, I always like to add an O to the end. Always. So if I'm working on a website, if I'm working on one of my personal projects, I add an O. So that way I know it's an optimized image and it's not an original. So it's just something that I do. Now, obviously, I could certainly rename this to something more useful like, upper denture, but for now, don't worry about that. So here, and I'm going to do this and show you why a little bit. The image format can stay as JPEG. Don't worry about the rest of these settings for now. Now, image sizing. Here's the key. Because if you apply the same formula to a 5 megabyte image, to a 600 megabyte image, it's going to come out differently. So when you think about the web and how big an image is going to be, 1024 is usually pretty darn big enough. So what we're doing here is saying, make the widest part, I don't care how big this image is or how small it is, make the largest part of this image, 1024 pixels wide or long at a resolution of 72 per inch. And that is because you have to think ahead of time. If you brought it down to 600 pixels, there are times, these screens today are much, much higher resolution than that. So most websites we build are, between, 980 could be the width cutoff. So again, you want to, 1024 is a safe place to be. And, we don't need any of the rest of this stuff. It has it, you don't need it. So let's click export and see how we did. It's exporting it. Now we're going to look here. And let's open these up and let's see what we got. So if we take a look and let us compare, these are still pretty big, right? They're in the 500s now. Let's compare them to my originals. Much better, but they're still a little big. So let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to delete what I did. I'm just going to drag these out to the trash. And again, I threw those out. Those are copies that it made that I threw out. So let's go ahead here now and try different export settings. So what I did before is I used 100 quality for the JPEG export. In truth, nobody ever does that. So let's bring it down to 70 and see how that works out. Let's try 74. It's a nice number. So it's doing the export again. So could you imagine doing all of these by hand every time? Forget it. We're getting there. We're getting there. It's a little bit big for my tastes. This denture does not have to be that big a file. So let's go ahead then and get rid of this. And these are the ranges. Once you bring your, with your camera and your files, if all of your files are coming in at 10 megs or they're coming in at 30 megs, you're going to find the setting for you that works in terms of your, in terms of your camera and your workflow. So let's come in here and let's go to 50% and see. Or 52%. That's good. Let's try that. Exporting 5 files. By the way, this Mac is a couple of years old, and it's still lickety-split with this. So, okay, we're in much better shape. This is 210, and these are okay. So let us do one more round. And I'm going to, and notice again, I'm not, these images are staying the same. I'm not affecting the originals in any way. Let us come back to export, and let's try it at 40. And the test is going to be, we're going to look and see together. 44 is fine. We're going to look and see together if we can see a difference. So here we go. Okay, 175 is still big. I might go in and redo this one on my own. 100 depends what you want to use it for. If this is a photo of one of your staff members, whether it's 80 or 100, I don't think it makes a difference. But so let's go ahead, though. The proof is in the pudding, right? So let's take the impression because you can see margins there. So that is the reduced one, the cropped one. Let's open up the original. And am I a little undercut there? Forgive me if I am. So let's come here and look at the original. And here's the question. So the question is, this original, what do we say this original is? This original file is 1.5 megs. Okay. And the copy is 61 kilobytes. So the question is, do we see a difference? Now, in fairness, let me go to the regular zoom and regular zoom. This is, here, let's go to, hold on. Let's zoom out so we can see the whole image and do the same thing here. This is an Apple preview, by the way. So, but taking a look here, let me make this one a little closer so I can kind of get the same idea, in the same plane, so to speak there. Let's see. And it's pretty close. Certainly this one is crisper. But at the end of the day, if you have an image that's this big, and you're showing it at that size, if we're showing the image at this size both times, or even here, this size, make it a little bigger. Practically speaking, there is no difference in those two images. And that's what I'm talking about. If you want to split hairs, which you can, certainly you can see more of the edentulous space there than you do, the alveolus there. But I think these are pretty much the same image. And that is really the beauty of doing it this way, because at the end of the day, you have all the information you need, and you don't have to have these huge files. So let me close that. And if you wanted to, let's just show you in preview how to do, let's just say. So I have this is 175 kilobytes. And so here's the quick and dirty way to do it. We're in preview for the Mac. What you do is you come here. We don't have to recrop it. Come here to export. And what you can do is we're going to come here to see this quality slider. I'll bring it down to, and again, I'm ballparking this. I have no idea. We'll call it 75 kilobytes. That will save to the desktop or to here where I put it. Where did I put that? Did I save it as the same thing? I might have. No, I didn't. So let's do that. Sorry about that. Let us go File, Export, and I put it in the wrong spot. So let us put it on the desktop and copy O1 so I don't overwrite my file. And let us take a look now. Let us get some info about this image. And you can see it's the wrong image. What did I do there? Oh, I might not have exported it properly. Sorry about that. We'll do this again. We're going to go File, Export. We are going to go to our desktop. Here we go. We're going to bring it down to around 56 kilobytes. Copy O1. It's going to yell at me for overwriting. Let's replace it. And now we can see what's this file size. Should be tiny now. 61 kilobytes. And can we really see a big difference? And I would argue that you really cannot. And so that really, that's really the beauty of it. So, okay, and so that really, for what it comes down to with Lightroom, that really wraps it up in general. The other things you can do very quickly is you can do a lot of metadata here. I don't spend personally a ton of time doing metadata, but if you wanted to, however your system is for organizing patient data, for example, you might have a folder per patient. You might have a folder, wank, bridge, visit 1, wank, bridge, visit 2, whatever you wind up doing. You can certainly add internal keywords or tags, however you want to do it here. You can do keywording, and you can have tags like upper denture or denture. If you do that, make sure that you have a consistent way that you do it, because otherwise you're going to be all over the place. If you have upper denture, then lower DENT, then RPD, decide ahead of time how you want to catalog it. If you wind up giving a lecture later on, and you want to see all the pictures with a denture on it, you can, like here, iStock photo has this image already pre-keyworded. But if I went here, this I might call it, impression. And I might call this denture. Then later on, in a year from now, if I want to find all my dentures, I can certainly just do a search here very easily. You can do a, it'll let you filter with attributes and things like that to say, there are ways to do that. Show me the ones that all have the keyword denture. So, okay. So let's jump back in to the PowerPoint there, the Keynote. We talked about that already. And so the only other thing to say is that I invite you to join the Facebook group. We have almost 100 dentists in there, and really it's just asking some questions back and forth, getting some ideas, and shooting ideas off each other. And so it's something interesting to check out. And there is my contact information. And we are ending a little bit early, a few minutes early. And so actually we're right on time. So let us see if there are any other questions. And at this point, it looks like we have answered the questions. So does anybody else have any other questions before we sign off? No. Okay. So we'll end a little bit on the early side. I thank you all for coming. In the next 2 or 3 days, you should get an email that gives you access to the recording. And certainly feel free to get in touch with me if you have any questions. Next month, we are going to do the web design workflow. We're going to go through those phases 1, 2, and 3 in some detail to talk about what you have to know to understand where you are in the marketing cycle. All right. Thanks again and have a great night.